Hello everyone, Stormy Strike here, and in this video I'm going to show you how to safely clean some very dirty model horses and animals. The three models in this video are all ones I got from antique stores within the past couple months, and they are each covered in some pretty ugly layers of dust, dirt, and grime. Let me introduce you to the models. First here is a Big Ben model. He's actually not too dirty, he mostly just has some old dust stuck to him, and he shouldn't be too difficult to clean. This next model isn't actually a Breyer horse, but a Blue Ribbon Ranch model. He has a significant amount of dirt on him. I can imagine that maybe someone used to play with this guy, having him gallop around in the mud. Lastly is our worst offender in this video, a vintage Breyer glossy gray Brahmin bull. That's right, this model is supposed to be a glossy gray and white bull. Instead, he looks like a brown and yellow bull. He is so dirty. I believe this guy might have lived in a smoker's home at some point in his life. He does not smell of smoke, but his significant yellowing and the heavy layer of grime on him sure does make it look like that's what's happened here. Let's start getting to cleaning these models. Here's the supplies you'll need to give your models a good bath. First, something to wash your models in. Here I am using an old plastic tub, but you can use whatever works for you, whether that's a tub, a bucket, or simply your kitchen sink. Next is dish soap. What kind of dish soap you use doesn't really matter, just don't use something that is too strong or contains bleach. Side note, never ever use bleach on Breyer models. This creates a chemical reaction that will break down the plastic over time. Using bleach on a model is never a good idea. The next items you'll need are a soft washcloth or rag and a soft bristled toothbrush. There is one more item I end up using later on in this video, but I'll talk about that one when it shows up. To start washing your models, first add some soap to whichever container you are using and fill it up with water. You don't need to fill it up a huge amount, just enough so you can mostly submerge your model in the water. Note that if your model is a newer model made around the 2000s to present, you're going to want to avoid submerging the model completely in water so you don't accidentally end up getting water inside of them. Newer models have a small air hole at the corner of their mouths, which is there to prevent the models from bloating if they get too hot. If you do happen to get some water inside of this hole, it's not a huge deal, but it will take a while for whatever water that gets inside the model to dry out properly. None of the models I'm using in this video have any air holes, which is why I am completely submerging them in the water without worry. Big Ben will be the first to demonstrate how he will go from a dirty model to a clean model. I put him in the water and slosh it around to make sure all of him gets covered in that soapy water. I then take the washcloth and start giving his body a light scrub with it. You do not need to scrub hard with it unless you have a particularly stubborn patch of dirt. Most of the times, just a light pass with the washcloth is enough to get most dust and dirt off. Now most models will get dirt and dust stuck into these smaller grooves in their mold, especially in places like their manes, tails, between the ears, and face. For these spaces, use a toothbrush. First submerging it in water and then lightly scrubbing. Again, you don't want to be too rough when doing this. You don't want to accidentally take paint off with the dirt and dust. Once cleaned, I rinse the model off with clean water. After he dried for a bit, however, I noticed that there were some spots I missed between his ears and some of his seams. So I went back with the toothbrush again to clean him some more. Now satisfied, I rinsed him again. And then you can use a soft, dry towel to dry them off. And then that is it. But this Big Ben was a pretty easy model to clean. Let's go on to our second model. The Blue Ribbon Ranch horse. This one has quite a bit more dirt than the Big Ben model. Let's see how clean we can get him. Same process of getting soapy water on the model, and then scrubbing it with the washcloth. You can see just how dirty this model is by the marks left on the washcloth. Now that the model is becoming cleaner, I can see that he has more paint rubs than I initially thought. Maybe someday you'll see this model in a different video about customizing. Here I am again using that toothbrush to scrub the dirt out of the mane and tail. If your model is getting too soapy and it's hard to see what's going on, you can rinse the bubbles off to get a better idea of what places still need to be cleaned. He is now cleaned and ready to be rinsed. Lastly is the Brahmin bowl. I knew before I started that it was going to take some effort to get this model clean, but I underestimated just how much it was going to take. I dumped him into the soapy water and first tried with the washcloth. This did take a little bit of the grime off, but it was taking a lot of elbow grease and not yielding much in the way of results. I then tried scrubbing with the toothbrush, but even that wasn't working well. For this model, I had to take drastic measures and use an abrasive sponge. Normally, I would not recommend using this, especially on a matte model. This particular model here is a vintage glossy, however, which means it can hold up to some heavier scrubbing techniques. If you can't get a model clean with the previous tools I showed you, and you have to resort to something like this sponge that has an abrasive side, make sure to go slowly and carefully when cleaning your model, because you can easily damage the paint. Another item I didn't end up using in this video but is also worth a try is a magic eraser. But again, I would only recommend using this on a model that is super dirty and happens to also be glossy, so you're less likely to damage the paint. Even I was not careful enough in some areas on this model when I was cleaning him and accidentally scrubbed off a little bit of his paint in some areas. With careful scrubbing with the abrasive side of the sponge, I was able to make some better progress of getting this heavier layer of icky grime off of the model. This model is so dirty and grimy, in fact, that it almost looks like I'm removing the paint here, but it is actually all dirt and grime. Even my dad thought I was scrubbing the paint off this model at first when he walked by. But as you start to see some of these areas underneath all that grime, like on his flank and shoulder where the model has some gray shading under that gloss, you can see for sure that I'm not removing the paint here, it's just all the awful, dirty, grimy stuff that is sitting on top of him. The smoother parts of the model's body were easier to clean. It got trickier, however, when working in the tight spaces like around his tail, legs, and face. Another tip that might be able to help you if you do have a model that is as dirty as this one is to let it soak for a little bit in the soapy water, and that might help make all that dirt a lot easier to remove. This model was taking so long to clean that I ended up only filming myself cleaning one side of him. I will still show you, however, what he looked like after being fully cleaned. Here you can see the difference on this model from his clean side to the side that hadn't been cleaned yet. This is the most drastic cleaning transformation I've ever had happen in my collection. Now let's take a look at all of the models after they've been cleaned. Big Ben's color looks so much richer and more vibrant now that he is no longer covered in old dust. This model does have a few marks and rubs that came with him when I bought him, but he still makes a very lovely shelf model to add to my collection. The Blue Ribbon Ranch model is a lot cleaner now as well. There are a few small spots I missed around his mane that I'll have to clean up better later. Unfortunately, the rubs on this guy are pretty extensive, so he will likely end up being repainted someday. Lastly, here is the Braham Bull fully cleaned. He looks like a completely different model. He's hopefully going to look even more different in the future after I whiten his yellow plastic with some window time or a UV box. This is why I put a white piece of paper with him in these pictures for reference on how yellowed his plastic currently is. Therefore, I can compare it to how white it will hopefully look in the future. You can follow me on social media for later updates about his transformation. That's it for this video. If you want to see more tips, tricks, and tutorials about model horses, leave this video a like. If you have a specific suggestion or something you want to learn about in the future about model horses, let me know in the comments and I may end up doing a video covering it. You can check out my past model horse info, tips, and tricks videos in this playlist here. Thank you all for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone!